the Select Committee on Manufactured Home Communities, and they have been a great resource in sponsoring some legislation, although GSMOL has its own lobbyists. In fact, we just hired a new one this year, but every year there's new legislation that GSMOL sponsors. GSMOL has been around since, it was organized in 1962, and the mobile home residency law really got started developing in the late 70s, and now it's very substantial, but still we envy states like Washington State that have a dispute resolution program as a means of enforcing the state civil code. Unfortunately, it's civil code, not criminal, and so the burden is on homeowners to enforce their rights, and it's a heavy burden trying to find attorneys that know the intricacies of manufactured housing law to adequately represent homeowners. And where you'll hear from one later this morning, one of the premier firms in California that is able to do cases on contingency, so homeowners don't have to pay, because when the park owners, the community owners know that the homeowners are paying out of pocket for their attorneys, they'll try every trick in the book to spread the process out and make it expensive, make it a war of attrition rather than a search for justice, and that's real unfortunate. In California, we're lucky that over 100 cities or counties have some form of rent stabilization ordinance. Rent control is the more commonly used term, but in some cases that's got a negative connotation tied to New York City apartment rent control. They say how that's created slum type of communities. But really just the opposite is true when you deal with manufactured home communities. It's a way to hold community owners accountable for proper maintenance of the communities. And also I made a chart to show the importance of these ordinances. This chart shows the rental history of a community east of San Diego, California, where there's no rent ordinance at the county level. And over a 20-year period, an elderly couple's rent was raised from $285 to $1,290. Some of the rents in that community are now approaching $2,000. And it shows that without protections, there's no limit to the slope or these increases in rents. Whereas if there's an ordinance, it would usually be tied to the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, or the inflation rate. Some ordinances are tied to the cost of living adjustment that seniors get. And those are generally much more gradual increases year to year. And you know that your cost of living adjustment in some years is nothing. And incidentally, this community, that operator doesn't even own the land. And they've had a sweetheart lease that has remained virtually unchanged since they bought the operation to run the business back in the late 80s. And so that's what this real low slope is, and no slope on the other. We know from having several resident-owned communities in California that the cost to operate and maintain nice communities can be $175 a month or less. So we use that as a comparison to what might be fair rents and what aren't, because they're going sky high in some areas. Some of you, especially the residents of Equity Lifestyle Properties, ELS communities, know that I've mentioned the poster child of abuse in California is an ELS community in Santa Cruz, where back in the late 90s, they tried to raise the rent from the $600 range to $5,000 a month space rent, because some of the homeowners in that community had paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for their home, and it's a gorgeous community right out on the ocean. They had an ordinance in Santa Cruz at the time. The community is De Anza, Santa Cruz. But ELS, a big corporate owner that owns roughly 400 communities nationwide now, kept suing the city. And at some point, the city made the decision, well, it's a choice between spending money on litigation or repairing our streets. and we just can't keep spending. They spent roughly $750,000
Wow.
defending their ordinance, and they gave up. So the existing residents are protected by a long-term lease that's reasonably fair, but when they go to sell, or if an heir inherits their home, the rent could go to $5,000 a month. No one's ever paid it, so consequently that community owner gets those homes, and that's what's happened up and down the state in many respects, that these community owners capture these homes for little to nothing, and it's theft. You know, we're trying to get our district attorneys and attorney general to prosecute on, you know, racketeering, when the property management arm on one hand economically evicts and the sales arm captures these homes for little to nothing. We haven't accomplished that yet, but we have. Some of these attorneys have been very successful, and incidentally, the one who's speaking this morning, hopefully he'll be here, residents of this park did sue their community owner, and a few months ago, 10 of the 47 plaintiffs won a jury award of over $58 million. You know, they won't end up with that. They'll probably be reduced. 57 of that, $1 million of that was punitive damages. But it shows that, you know, even against the big players, if you have the right attorneys and a good case, you can't prevail. You'll hear from George Kalin later that a few years ago in an ELS community in San Jose, they won a $111 million judgment. That was reduced, but that sends a message. And with some of these community owners making windfall profits, it's a real threat to the viability of our communities as still being affordable housing. And so it's important to have whatever support you can. And so litigation is one resource, the elected officials are another, and Carolyn Carter from National Consumer Law Center is another resource, and she just walked in. Welcome, Carolyn. And incidentally, I'm not just a homeowner. I live in San Diego County. I am a park owner technically too, because I bought shares in ELS, as some of you know, and these are some of the posters I made for the shareholder meeting. I've attended 3 shareholder meetings in Chicago, and this was a blow up of an article, the $111 million judgment against ELS, and I said to the board of directors, as a shareholder, I'm concerned that in our zeal to maximize our profits, we're neglecting proper maintenance of our community, and that is not a sustainable long-term model for us as a corporation, a company. And I don't know if they've really changed their thinking that much, but one thing they did change their thinking was a community in Hemet, California, not too far, about an hour drive from where I live, where in the middle of their community they had a rundown abandoned home that had probably been abandoned for 20 years or more, that was rat infested, termite infested, and pigeon infested. So I made some big pictures of that for the board of directors and said, you know, as a shareholder, I'm embarrassed that we're operating some of our communities like a slumlord operates these communities. And we need to do a better job maintaining our communities. And within 4 or 5 months, they had this building torn down and planted with grass. And so some of the board of directors were more receptive than some of their regional vice presidents, or certainly Sam Zell, their chairman of the board, a billionaire principal shareholder. Well, I don't want to carry on too long. We've got a lot of other states to report what's going on, but let's go to the other California group, ComoCal, and if you have something you want to report from California, please do that. And I'll just mention there's information from both groups. There's our magazine out there and the MRL, so help yourself to those. And Sam?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Hi everyone, my name is Sam Bo. I am the treasurer of ComoCal Coalition of Home.
Can you use the microphone?
The coalition.
You have to turn it on.
Oh yeah, thank you. Coalition of Mobile Homeowners California, and we first want to thank GSMOL for being for homeowners for quite some time. for bringing up the mobile home residency law. And because of a lot of work from GSMOL, that we have a lot of protections. But as Tim has stated, one of our biggest issues right now is enforcement of the law, where many park owners don't follow the law. They know they can get away with it because residents don't have the money to hire an attorney to enforce these laws. And this is one of the biggest issues that COMOCAL is currently pushing. And to the senators, because we know this is the biggest issue that we have right now, because we have good laws in California, but the problem is the enforcement of these laws. And COMOCAL has been here for 12 years, and one big thing we do is a magazine that we send out to parks for free, and it has a lot of information for park owners about what has worked in other parks, what tactics the park owners are doing, and what ways we do to protect our rights. And it's a fairly successful magazine that has been spread out throughout California. And what we're also trying to do now is to make a radio station for mobile home residents to listen to. And because what we believe is important is networking and communicating, because by doing this we can each learn from each other. Because what the park owner doesn't want is they don't want us to get together, because strength is in numbers, and we believe that to be true. And with me all saying this, I'm proud to introduce our board that is here. Ken Mung, my father is the president, right here. And Paul Massminster, our vice president. And we are currently a new board of COMOCAL, and we are dedicated to continue and make sure our residents have their rights protected. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, let's go on from the table. Arizona, how about we go on with Arizona?
Get up there, Kelly.
I'm going. I'm Deanna Moreau.
It's not on.
Is on?
Yeah, turn it on.
Turn it on, lady.
I'm Deanna Moreau.
No, that's good. It's better. It's better.
And I'm a member of Arizona Association of Manufactured Home Owners. And we're actually kind of proud of what we've accomplished in Arizona. And happy to welcome Kelly Yielding. She's our legislature director in the state of Arizona. And if we get you started, Kelly, can we shut you off or not? Okay, because she has so much to share and so much experience. Been with the association for 26 years? Yeah, 26 years. So, that's longer than I've been alive. Me too. I'm going to hand this over to Kelly because she really is the brains of the group today.
Thank you, Dan. First of all, I'd like to tell you guys, this is the first time I've been to any of these meetings. Many years ago, we were a member of NMHOA, and we had, I guess, presidents didn't want to continue the membership, so it was dropped. Well, last year, we got a vision in Arizona, and we said, you know what, we need to spread the good things that happen in our state and share some of the things from other states. So, we are now a new member of NMHOA again. Arizona has 1,400 mobile home parks. We have 140,000 residents that live in those mobile home parks. And with that, you will never hear a mobile home out of my mouth again. I keep a jar when I have my meetings. Anybody that uses the T word has to put a quarter in it, and it paid for my trip. We do have a paid lobbyist in our organization, and that lobbyist helps us to get sponsors for our bills, get the bills through and passed successfully this last year. I just want to share one because I think it's important that you should know about this because it may start happening in your state. But we had a resident come to us that lived in a manufactured home in a park, and the park was saying to them, your mother's living there with you now, and we think that she should be on the title of your house. Now, she didn't own the house with them. She had nothing to do with the purchase of the home, but they wanted her name on the title, not on the lease to the park. And they said, why? Well, if something happens to you, we want to be able to continue her residency. Baloney. That's not why. They wanted to be able to collect rent from her in the event that they passed on, or if she was too old, they could just take the home away from her. So we went to the legislation. We had our lobbyists get a person to sponsor our bill, and as of May of this year, we now have the title bill that has been passed and signed by our governor that does not allow them to do this to anybody that lives in a manufactured home. This is something that would affect assets of an individual that might be on assisted living, that might be in a nursing home and get sick and can't pay for their home, can't pay their lot rent. This could be put onto assets. It could be taken into beneficiary status. You could have families fighting over the home because the person is not there anymore, but their name is on the title. Who gets it? We didn't feel that was right. If my mother, God rest my soul, came to live with me, and I had to put her on my title, I put her in a nursing home first. I wouldn't want her to have the responsibility of the mobile home, or the manufactured home, or any home, but I also wouldn't want to give up my right if I wanted to sell it, and I'd have to ask my mother for permission. I haven't asked for permission from my mom since I was 17 years old. I'm not going to do it now. And the responsibility that she would have to take on. It's not fair. So we went through legislation, we got it passed, and it's now the law. They can't do it to us anymore. The other law, thank you. The other law we have a problem with is landscaping. Anybody have that problem in their state? Yeah, we have to pay to maintain the trees in our parks. Even though they aren't owned by us, even though we can't take them out when we go, and we can't put them down if we don't want them, we still have to water them and pay a fee to have them maintained. That doesn't seem fair because we don't own it. So we've taken that to legislation. We did get a little bit of a flack from the park owners, but eventually an agreement was made, and we do have a partial happy medium right now. Next year we're going full blown. We're going to take it out completely. But we have to start somewhere, baby steps. That's what it's about. For 140,000 people living in that state, they should have the rights that we have as a stick homeowner. I also want to tell you that of those 140,000 people, 4,000 of them are members in our organization in Arizona. Our parks are divided up into 7 districts, and each district has a representative. We get invited to come talk. We have a membership director that goes out to try to get membership, but only through invitation. We're protected by the law through the state of Arizona to be allowed to go and do that. They can't tell us to leave if somebody asks us to come. Our laws are called the Arizona Manufactured Mobile Home Residential Landlord-Tenant Act, to include RVs having their own separate law, and now we're fighting to get park models so that they can have the same laws, because right now they don't. We do have a hearing process that we can go through in the state. We don't have to worry about paying lawyers, as I've been hearing here, hundreds of dollars. For $50, we can file a complaint and have our hearing told through the state level. ALJ, Advocate Judge Law, will definitely sit down, hear the case, and make a decision, and that decision becomes the law for that park. And it carries out through the whole state. So we do have a little bit of a different situation than you guys do, and I hope that with our membership through this organization, we can help to share and grow and make our numbers stronger, because that is what's the most important thing. We want cooperation, not confrontation, and that is our motto through Arizona. Thank you.
I also want to share something with you. I live in an ELS park, and ELS has several parks in our state. 9. And Kelly is actually taken on 4 of them specifically that we're going to take to task. And so, and Tim and I have talked about this for over a year. putting an ELS network together nationwide. So we're working to do that in the state of Arizona so that we can, have our representation up against a very large company. So those of you who live at ELS parks, let's get together and see what we can do, and perhaps have monthly conference calls or anything, and let you know what's going on in our state and what you may be able to accomplish in your state against ELS. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And I was remiss in not introducing Don Hart, who's from California also, and part of our organization. We have chapters at the individual community level, and Don is president, still president, or you current chapter, and he shares a community owner, same as Paul has, one of the worst abusers in the state. And Don, if you wanted to say a few words about what you've been doing.
A few words.
Don't be like me now.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Don, and I'm from California. About 5 years ago, our park was bought out by a company known as Court & Scott, and we found out after a couple of years of scrambling and trying to figure out what was happening to our suddenly raised rents, or suddenly reduced park maintenance staff, and suddenly reduced park maintenance, that we were being privatized, so to speak. Now, through associations with people like Paul and a few others who had more experience at GSMOL, have been very, very helpful in coming in and getting us established and helping us find out that we had rights. Gee, we didn't even know we had, and learning a little bit about the laws. But we also found out that there's plenty of other predators in this California region. We have Tatum and Kaplan, and ELS was mentioned before. But hey, it gets worse. What we're finding out now is there's a growing corporatization from Wall Street and private equity firms, hedge funds, moving in and buying up parks. These parks can be so lucrative, and my guess is that now that Wall Street's pillaged everything else, they've decided that mobile home parks are still a happy hunting ground. So we have an additional threat of large money, billions coming in, that are trying to buy up these parks. And of course, we have the backdrop of the parks were developed by mom and pops, then it's passed to their children, it's passed to their grandchildren. Well, grandchildren, of course, they don't know anything what the grandparents knew about managing a park or have the pride. So they're very encouraged by these large corporate interests to flip these parks to them. And then we see that real estate is one of the best deductions you can have in any country in the world, especially in America, so that these companies can then own these parks for 5 or 7 years, flip them to one of their so-called different companies, or sell them, as we call it. What really, to our minds, is not a sale, it's just a change of names. And then they can start deduction and depreciation all over again. And many of these real estate interests do not pay taxes, we're finding out. So against that backdrop, we have also, you open up the newspaper every morning and you see, 3 topics, either poverty, homelessness, and affordable housing, at least in California, are constantly in the news. And we are finding more and more from researchers that eviction is one of the major causes of poverty. It's not a symptom of poverty, it's a cause of poverty. You can't get a job if you don't have a home. And when you have homeless people, then they're stuck in this cycle where they can't get out of it again. Well, some of the park owners that we have have eviction as their business model. It's part of their profit center. They can take the homes for pennies on the dollar and then sell them again to another unsuspecting person who's trying to escape the confines of apartment living. So we have all this going on in California, but we also have another thing that's happening. Because of all the affordable housing talk, we have this rising up of more and more awareness and people willing to do things. And I think we're at a spot where we may be able to really start turning this around. There's battles looming, but they're good fights, and you've got a lot of really good people like Mr. Ming, Paul Messminster there, Tim Sheehan, experts like David, consultants that can keep things going. So I think we're probably, and I hopefully are, entering a new age of activism and movements that for not just mobile home parks, but affordable housing too. So I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having me, everyone, and let's have a really great conference.
appreciate that. Yes, okay, how about if we go on to Nevada and any reports from what your organization's doing?
Okay.
I hope you can all see me. In our state, we are fortunate, and I'm sure other states have this, but we have a Chapter 118B, and this is a Nevada law, okay? And it covers what the rights of the park owners are, as well as what the homeowners are. This is just strictly if you own your home, okay? Of course, now with the economy tanking in 2007, something like that, a lot of it has become rentals, so this does not apply any longer. But over the years, what has happened to our membership, people have gotten older. They don't want to get involved. In our membership, we used to have like 1,000 members probably 10 years ago, and we're down to, I'd say about 300 members. We're trying to do everything possible to get our legislature. We're small. We do not have a paid lobbyist. We do have an advocate in State Senator Mark Menendo. His mom was on the board and she passed away a year ago. But, so he is very adamant in trying to help us to draft legislature and get it in, to get it in effect. I do live in an ELS park. They purchased Mountain View about 3 years ago, and but we are fortunate to have a lot of people, just like people here, that are really interested in our plight and in rent. Our organization now has tried to do rent, not rent control, we said justification, equalization. It never ever got out of committee in the legislature. So we kind of gave up on it at one period of time. But the guy that was head of Industry and Commerce and controlled that committee, he's no longer part of it. So we hope that we can continue efforts in doing that. I look at our park, which is an ELS park, and I'm saying out of 354 homes, ELS is taking in about $200,000 a month, okay? Because, and I'm using an average of feel there should be. If somebody has lived in the park, say 10 years, if they've lost a spouse, be compassionate, have some kind of a loyalty program. And that's what we're going to try to work on. So I don't know what other information to give you. I wasn't really prepared, but I do talk a lot.
If you'll introduce others from Nevada?
Okay, the only one right now is my brother Michael McHugh from Mountain View. We will have somebody here a little bit later.
Okay.
Thank you.
And we've seen that same thing in some of the communities in California where ELS is renting homes, in some cases for less than they're charging homeowners for the patch of dirt. Another thing I'd mentioned to the board of directors was that equity has two meanings, doesn't it? Not just a financial value meaning, but fairness. And I encourage them to focus a little on the fairness side of equity lifestyle too. And that the equity lifestyle for the homeowners, if they're losing the value of their home, is not a good thing. It's got to be a spirit of a partnership. It's hard to reach that though with a lot of community owners. Okay, let's go on to Utah. And
Yes, we can't turn you off.
Hi, everybody. Last year,
hey, introduce yourself.
okay,
And
Connie Hill from Utah. I am the president of the Utah State Association. Last year, we told you that we had got legislation through and we got what was called a helpline for residents in Utah. And in trying to get that implemented, we got stonewalled by the attorney for all of the parks. And so that's been kind of a problem. We've been able to get the word out, but what it did was exactly what we had been trying to tell them, that we had a problem. Residents, the few that did know about it, called, listed out their concerns, and when this attorney was stonewalling the people that were running the helpline, they finally went to the Attorney General and said, you charged us with a job, and we can't do our job because. So they are now aware at the legislature that what the residents have been telling them for years is really valid concerns and not just whining by a few homeowners. So that's been a plus for us this year. We have in the works right now a second community that's trying to purchase, become resident owned, which has been very, very nice. They were able to partner with a developer who will develop 2 empty pieces and let the residents have the mobile home park. So we're really looking forward to hoping that that comes to fruition. Carol, what else have we been? We've had a fairly busy year, as well as we're experiencing some of the same problems I think that some of the other states are, and that is keeping up our membership, apathy, nobody wants to be involved. The other thing we did institute this year, going forward from April, was classes every, other month, every quarter, education type classes for homeowners to inform them about what their rights are. And that has been somewhat successful. The last one wasn't because it was an evening and people just don't turn out for the evening, we've discovered. So going forward, we'll try to do those on Saturdays. That seems to work best, at least in our instance. Carol Hartwig is our treasurer, and she had some thoughts that she wanted to share. Carol?
Well, the only thing that I wanted to say is that just like all of you have seniors, and some of you are here, including myself.
Do you want to come up so they can maybe hear you?
Can you hear me okay? Gosh, I have a loud voice.
Evidently not loud enough.
Thanks. Well, anyways, I'm saying, well, I guess I didn't introduce myself, Carol Hartwig. I'm from Utah, and I've only been there about 13 years from California. And I came to Utah because there was hardly any traffic. And if you know the California traffic, you know how seriously wonderful it can be to go to a state where there was very little until now. Everybody's moved to Utah because they have jobs. Anyway, we live in a mobile home, well, I guess manufactured home. I'm trying to learn how to say that too. Like most of you here do. And I moved there because I thought, oh my gosh, it's inexpensive. I'm going to retire. I loved my neighbors. They were all so wonderful. I had no idea what was going to happen to us. We're owned by Kingsley. I don't know that Connie mentioned that, I didn't hear it, but I think Kingsley Corporation is about as bad as ELS. They raise our rents every year, whether we need it or not. Services have diminished dramatically. We're getting to look like Tijuana. And I don't mean that in a negative way towards the people who are moving in. It's that they are allowing homes to deteriorate, yards to look like crap, They are allowing people to paint their homes colors that were never allowed before. So we're beginning to look horrible. And I say that because down the street from us is another Kingsley park called Majestic Oaks, which has always been bad. But we were a senior park, and 2 years ago that changed, and now we're a family park. My concern is for the seniors. I have watched people die in their homes because they cannot get the care they need. They cannot keep their yards up. They begin to receive threats. We're going to charge you $500 to send somebody into your yard to mow it. And yet there are people in our park who will do it for free, but they won't tell them that. The stress is overwhelming for these folks, and they have no place to go. And unfortunately, right now in Utah, we're getting more, but we don't have enough of the subsidized senior housing. So they have no place to go if they don't have any family. One of my neighbors was recently visited by another neighbor. She had 6 cans of soup in her cupboards, and that's all she had. Every dime that she gets in with Social Security goes to pay the rent. Next year, she won't be able to stay. She's been there and raised her family there since 1971. It's heartbreaking to see what they are doing, and they don't care. They do not care about the fact that the seniors in these parks are suffering. And there might be those who are lucky. So far, I'm okay, and I did retire. So far, I'm okay, but they've lived there so long, and they come from a period of time when they didn't have to work, and they have maybe their deceased husband's income, Social Security, maybe no pension money, no nothing. It's really, really sad. So that's my goal, is to get our state to understand that we are human beings, just like the stick-owned folks are, just like all of us are, and we all count. We all have rights. We have human rights. And why we are treated so differently in this day and age is beyond me. So that's really my passion, and I hope that for each and every one of you, whether you are a senior or not, that if you're going to fight, you have to fight for those who can't fight for themselves. Thanks.
Let's go on to Minnesota. Who's going to be the rep? Well, statewide with APAC also. Okay. So we'll try to limit it to 5 minutes now from here on out. Okay.
Stephanie from Minnesota. Mine and Marjorie's park is different than all of yours, is that we own our park, so I always say this in our APAC meetings too, that it's interesting listening to your issues. And I'm also the on-site manager, so I'm the one that controls everything. So if I want trees cut down, guess what? I cut down trees. I can't imagine, when I first moved in, I moved in before Marjorie, we had a landowner, or a park owner, who didn't pay bills. And then you have my dad, who's city water superintendent, who calls and says, by the way, I'm shutting off your water to your whole park if I don't get this bill paid. So he knew I was trying to get us to become park owners, so then I have to call our owner and say, are you gonna pay the bills so we can have water? So now all of our bills are paid on time. Everything gets, our streets get done if we want our streets done. We get new parks if we want new, it's hard for me to fathom everything that you guys have to go through, and I'm glad that we don't have to do it. Would I go back to living in a privately owned park? Never ever again. I won't move out of our park unless I become a millionaire, which isn't happening anytime soon. But as for APAC, what did we do legislative-wise? We got them to up our what's it called?
Relocation Trust Fund?
Relocation Trust Fund. It was set at a certain limit, which, to be honest with you, we've had to move homes in our park due to water main issues. And they wanted, what was it? It was a really low amount in order to move a mobile home, which it cost, in the park alone, it costs $4,000 to $5,000 to move it from one slot to another. I can't imagine moving it out of a park to a different part in the state, but that's, what else have we done? I'm just coming on the board, so I'm learning still little by little.
So if it's all right, I could temporarily put on,
That-
back on my previous
Your
hat.
APAC hat, yeah.
So, yes, and I think it's been really helpful for the APAC board as well to have representation not just from investor-owned communities, but resident-owned communities. It really helps to expand out the discussion of the issues, and I think that's been a valuable addition. And it's great that Stephanie has not only joined the board, but that you're the first vice president, so taking on a leadership role with the organization as well. So yes, back in 2007, Minnesota established the Manufactured Home Relocation Trust Fund, and it was something that was a long anticipated goal of APAC. Unfortunately, to get it passed, the compensation levels were too low, but this last legislative session, they were essentially doubled. So the buyout, and if it can't be moved, then moving costs, the amounts went up. I'm trying to remember what the numbers were exactly. I think the maximum you could receive to help move a home, a single section home, used to be $4,000, now it's $7,000. To move a multi-section home, the maximum you could receive was 8,000. Well, anyway, it's 12,500 now. So, and the maximum buyout you can receive in both cases is 2,000 more than the maximum moving. So, yeah, an improvement, definitely. It's just too bad that it took that long after the implementation of the program to finally convince the legislature that the amounts needed to be increased. But it's good to see that they now have been, and they went into effect August 1st. There's also been a lot of attention on a particular park that's slated for sale and redevelopment in Minnesota, in the city of St. Anthony Village, which has been getting all kinds of attention that they're not necessarily interested in getting. They also got national coverage for routine traffic stop for a cracked tail light for a school employee on his way to work that ended up in that individual being shot to death, seated in his car. And they also blocked the construction of a mosque. So they've been getting all kinds of great coverage because they're also very supportive of this community being sold and redeveloped. It's a community of 100 lots. Fortunately, there's a battle with a lot of supporters to keep it open. There's an organization that formed within that community that works with Latino immigrants throughout the Twin Cities area. It's a community that has a lot of Latino residents that has been organizing the residents to preserve the community. There's an area nonprofit put in an offer to purchase the community, as seems to be the case whenever that right attempts to be exercised in Minnesota. The community owner and the new buyer of the land decides just to ignore that and move ahead with what they want to do anyway. So a lawsuit has been kicked off. The State Attorney General's office has submitted a friend of the court brief in support of the residents and the developer to preserve the community, but it's made for some exciting activities and some exciting news coverage around that. And if I could hijack this mic for 1 minute longer, I'll mention that something that unites the two hats, the old hat and the new hat. APAC and NMHOA, is the two organizations have a joint project to do some organizing in North Dakota, specifically in the Fargo area. And as a result of receiving a grant to support that work, we've just completed the first year and got renewed funding, so we're starting the second year of organizing in that area. There are about 60 residents now organized and involved in parks in the Fargo area. They've formed what they've dubbed the Fargo Area Park Resident Association. They've had just about all of the area legislators attending their meetings, and in fact, some of the candidates who are running against the incumbents decided, well, if the sitting legislators are going to these meetings, we're going to go too. Probably definitely the most substantial breakthrough the organizing work has made so far is, as people may know or guess at, North Dakota doesn't have the strongest of legal protections. Some states, I think, are able to hold up books, printouts of the laws that protect homeowners that go, 100 pages or more. I think, including both the technical statutes and what they call the century code, I think it's about 8 pages. But what they do have in there is an inspection and enforcement responsibility that's the state Department of Health's responsibility, but municipalities are able to step forward and sign an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, that they will assume that inspection responsibility. Coming out of this organizing work, the city of Fargo decided they were going to do that. So they've been not only aggressively inspecting and enforcing against the community owners any lapses in proper maintenance, but they've been attending the homeowners' meetings to make sure that they're up to date on the issues. So it's been great, and they've noticed, and this is coming from the health department, they've noticed an improvement even in the parks that they haven't gone into to do inspections, that suddenly the overall standard of maintenance has increased. And the homeowners have been fortunate to have a chief health inspector who's very creative in the use of the inspection authority, that the safety and sanitation code doesn't say anything about condition of the roads, but potholes allow for standing water, and that's something that they do have enforcement power over, so they've gotten all of the potholes filled, because otherwise there would be standing water. So they've done a lot of great work. We briefly had 2 people from North Dakota registered to attend, but unfortunately one of them had health problems, the other didn't feel comfortable traveling on her own, but hopefully next year.
Okay, how about Washington State? Yes, second.
I'm Bertie Olson. I'm from the state of Washington, and I'm on the board of directors of NMHOA, standing for Association of Manufactured Homeowners. I have been involved first with MOA and now later with NMHOA since 2004, and became involved by sitting in at the legislative hearings, and from then on it just developed. We have in the state of Washington a couple of problems, well, we have many, but right now that are really in the forefront is that we have 3 parks south of Seattle that have got notice of closure, and we have another park over in Ellensburg in the middle of the state that has received notice. The one in Ellensburg, Ishmael is working on all 4 of them, but the one in Ellensburg is something I keep shaking my head over. The county commissioners decided they wanted the land for overflow parking lot for when the rodeo is in town. their children, families. And they just up early decide we're gonna have that for overflow parking. We have 3 in south of Seattle that, what is it, 150 children that will cause 4 teachers to be laid off because they don't have the necessary students. We are in the process of, we tried last year to have a notice of closure bill so that we would extend the 12 months to 5 years. But we didn't get the floor for a vote, so this year we're gonna try again. I doubt we'll get 5 years, but even if we get 3 years, we'll be more than happy. I personally live in a park they can't close right now because we are owned by a family trust and Salvation Army. We do, however, have a management group looking after us, and they're not very desirable. We have a manager who gave one woman, a single outspoken woman, she received 4 eviction notices in 13 months. And we have another family where an elderly woman that has been in the park longer than I have received an eviction notice. All this is because the trees are too tall, or a hedge is too tall. The old woman ended up in the hospital. Her daughter had to fly out and take care of her, and she almost died from a heart attack when she got that notice. So we are working on that. I don't know if it'll ever come anything out of it. But elsewhere in the state of Washington, what we need most is members and a little bit more enthusiasm. The homeowners association I belong to, we were very, very gung-ho years ago, had 30 members come to meetings and all that. And now it is down to once a month wine tasting party. Never mind that we need a lot of legislation. The wine is more important, so that's how it goes. And I don't really have anything else to say unless Isabel feels I should bring something up.
Well, you didn't mention the opportunity to purchase bill.
Oh yeah, we are looking to get some legislation into the opportunity to purchase our parks, and hoping that we can have non-profit organizations coming in and purchase the parks. And we have been getting some incentives for the park owners to sell to the tenants, such as not having to pay sales tax, and that they could charge a couple of percentage more. But how we're going to make out on that one, I have no idea. It's some of our better legislators, and I mean better by supporting manufactured homes, are up for re-election, and some of them didn't make it through the primary. So we have a whole new group we have to educate, and that's going to take some time.
Okay. Andy, did you have anything to add?
No, that's a pretty good job.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's go on to Colorado. We don't have a statewide group yet.
We're very new and we're just actually putting down the foundation for what we can do. And we're coming off, the actual organization is coming off from an ordinance that NMHOA helped us get last year for the parks in Boulder.
Okay. Isabel spent a lot of time in Colorado and Kylan, many of you remember Kylan.
Yes, they did, and we wouldn't be here or even organized without them. They were extraordinary.
Okay. Okay, well, hopefully you're continuing to build momentum. Rita, about for Oregon?
Guess I have to speak for Charlie this year.
Yeah, you do. And use his mannerisms and everything too. His flair for the dramatic.
Okay, I'm from Oregon. My name is Rita Lohberger. I stand in as the state vice president for the Manufactured Housing OSTA organization, the Oregon State Tenants Association. Have been working with this organization for about 13 years now. Oregon works through a coalition that was set up originally by the legislative people. They said if we wanted bills passed in Oregon, we would have to work through a coalition. The coalition consists of owners, managers, senators, attorneys, residents, fair housing, anybody connected with manufactured housing. With this coalition, we form the bills that become the state laws. The state laws are voted in quite readily by the legislative people, and I hear legislation here a lot. This is where we are working and we are centering in on this year, because it seems like we have no enforcement. The enforcement pin is missing. About 3 years ago, I went to the Attorney General's office asking for an interview with Ellen Rosenblum. I was going to take John Van Landingham and Ishbel with me, and we were going to present our case for over 62,000 people in Oregon that have chosen our lifestyle. I was given an attorney on the force that came from the East Coast. He was very well trained in civil law and work comp, knew nothing about manufactured housing law, and that's where my interview with the Attorney General's office ended, because he would not recognize us as anything but residents, as renters. And I said, we are not renters, we are homeowners. We pay taxes, we have a valid place in here, and we make these businesses possible. There was no way that he had any understanding of manufactured housing. So the buck stopped there until this year. Oregon is a no rent control state. Therefore, we are free reign for a number of buyers that come in from out of state. Cal-Am among them, and I'd like to speak to Carolyn about that. Cal-Am is another one of the ELS property owners that decided it's their land and they're going to do with it whatever they want. So they are totally avoiding the laws that we have on the books under ORS Chapter 90, the laws that we have worked on for 35, 40 years and have been passed into law. We're working through our legislative officials, and I do have an appointment with Senator Devlin when I get home, and he is my district senator. I am going to discuss this with him again, because we are going to be hot and heavy on the floor of the legislature this fall, presenting our cases here for our home ownership. So.
Thank you, Rita. Hey, Rick, for Delaware. Yay! Touched on a little last night during the reception. The unique situation in Delaware.
Okay.
With 3 counties,
Oh,
the
yeah.
whole state.
The whole state. All right, I've got a timer here.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and we'll probably have to cut it off and continue some of the final reports during a different session, so we don't get too off track as far as the agenda.
Okay, well, great. Glad to follow Rita, because you brought up the key subject and you and I have talked. It's about enforcement. And enforcement means that you have to have some entity to do the enforcing. Most of us probably go to either a coalition or the Attorney General. Our enforcement issues have been going on for over 24 years. And so don't give up the fight. Do not give up the fight. You can't. You got to keep after it. It's an election year. And I'm going to bring that up because you can't have enforcement if you don't have statutes that are clear and able to be enforced. That's what we're finding. In my state, we finally got an attorney general that has called and orchestrated meetings with community HOAs, with state HOAs, and with competing state entities. Brought us all together at the table. He's now going to go to all the community owners, get them together, and he's a very big supporter of ours on our side. But we have to be able to sit down at the table, face to face, which is what I had brought together when I ran our state relocation authority. I had both sides, both Democrats, Republicans, women, men. We had them all together at the table. And for 6 years, we settled everything at that table. And every vote we took was unanimous. It's called win-win. I'm in a particular situation because Delaware is advertised as a business-friendly state. So there you go. Even our legislators will remind us that that's the way it is and that's how we have to work. That doesn't mean we give up anything. It means that we have to figure out how to do a win-win, and it'll take time. And so all of that starts with an election, though, because we're in a hold right now. You don't have your general election until November. And all of this started way back 6-8 months ago with the primaries. So if you're not working on getting people elected, you're not helping yourself a whole lot when it comes time to go visit them and ask them for statutes and legislation. So that's the big thing. And one other thing, somebody talked about trees. Well, I got to tell you something. We did a tree bill. We got it passed. We forgot to put in about the roots. Just a reminder. Wow. Because that came back to bite us big. Wow. That's right. So anyway, I'm going to cut this short. I'm in a small state. I'm very fortunate that we're able to be very close to our legislators. I live next door to two. So it's very personal. But you still have to do the lobbying. And don't be afraid. I know there's a couple of people here that I've listened to in the halls and in other times. Do not be afraid. Say, how do I lobby? It's simple. You go to the legislature, you go to their office at the Capitol. If you're hearing that they're having, we have coffees. Our legislators love one day a month they have coffee. Go to them. And I go to several of them because my people are usually not dealing with manufactured housing, somebody else is, but they're friends. You got to horn in on it and take advantage of it. Do not be afraid. Lobbying is not a dirty word. It's a very valuable word that will get what you want if you're clear and make sure. A lot of times what I do is I get 3x5 cards. I put issues down, I write on them, and when I meet them at their coffee or someplace, put my name's on it with a return sticker. This is what we're working on. But with that, time's up.
Okay, let's go on to New Jersey.
Here's my brains.
Hi, I'm Gary Miller. I'm the president of the Manufactured Homeowners Association of New Jersey. And this is Lori Dibble. This is our legislative rep. New Jersey has been a home rule type of state for many, many years. We have roughly 500 and some odd individual municipalities within the state, and home rule has been embedded in all of them. So we have a little different fight than what I'm hearing from a lot of you. We can't just go and advocate at state level. We have to do it more so at the home rule level in the municipality itself, and then work from there up towards state. We've been very successful in doing that by partnering with other types of organizations to do that. Lori has led that fight.
Hi. Okay, so I'm just going to do a real quick laundry list here. The state of New Jersey, our membership has been steady and slowly growing. We have, thanks to the work of Gary and our revitalized and expanded board, been very aggressive at organizing new chapters. I think this year we have 3 new chapters for the year so far, which is pretty good. We have expanded our communication efforts. We now produce 6 newsletters a year. We have an annual convention. We participate in numerous workshops. We host workshops. We are working on a workshop with the Housing and Community Development Network in October on aging in place and manufactured housing. We have our own task force. We are approached the governor's office to institute a governor's task force on manufactured housing. We've been partnered with Red Cross to do a home fire safety program where there's an installation of smoke detectors, fire safety flyers and handouts that are specific to manufactured housing, partnering with the local fire departments, the homeowners association, and other voluntary organizations. They've done 1 fire safety campaign in Eatontown with 2 manufactured housing communities, and October the 3rd, we're doing another one in October the 8th in Brighton Township, Brighton and Barnegat Township, Brighton and Barnegat Community, and Pine Woods Estates. Our primary legislative issues have been working. New Jersey is a fair share state, which means that each municipality is supposed to have their fair share of affordable housing. We've been working very closely with the advocates in Fair Share, which is also the name of the association that litigates on this, to include manufactured housing in the Fair Share allocations. And it's a little complicated, but we've been working very closely with them. It's with the attorneys that are involved in that. Other big issue is rent stabilization. As Gary said, that's on a municipal level. We've been successful in getting new rent control ordinances in 1 municipality in Neptune, and we have defended existing rent control and expanded rent control in several other municipalities. It's an ongoing fight. The Park Owners Association has a whole committee that is set up with attorneys and lobbyists, etc., to fight existing rent control and to put vacancy decontrol in our community. So we basically follow them around, and every time they attack, we defend. We are working on a uniform titling law with Carolyn Carter. We would be the 2nd state, I think, to introduce a uniform titling statute. It hasn't been introduced yet. There's a lot of complications, many involved with the way manufactured housing is taxed, the taxation of manufactured housing. We are also, in the next 2 years, the New Jersey Uniform Law Commission is set to review the laws that relate to manufactured housing. That's a state commission that goes through all the laws to get rid of old equidated statutes and make sure that everything is consistent. We hope to get rid of mobile home when they do that, but that's a small part of it. There's a lot of other things that will go into that. Those commissions normally take about 1.5 years, and they involve a set of attorneys who go through each of the laws and hearings and recommendations. One thing that we're moving into is enforcement. We're going to be meeting with our Attorney General, our new Attorney General, and 2 big issues that are on our plate right now for outreach into our chapters are upcoming election and how to participate in voter registration, having election candidate forums, things like that. And it's good that we're going to be having a session on that during our meeting, and also aging in place. We've been trying to come up with ways to provide services to communities that are naturally occurring retirement communities. And that's it. That's what we've been doing, and that's what we're working on.
I'd like to introduce two other people from New Jersey. And these two people are in a community that lost rent control a couple of years ago in their town. And over the last year, these people have worked extremely hard and have now got rent control back in their community. Michelle Woodruff and Bernice Smith from Brighton and Barnegat. They have done a wonderful job. I might also add that they took a park association that really had done nothing and had lost a lot of membership. And in 1 year, took correct me if I'm wrong, took a bank account of under $100 to over, what, 2,000, did you tell me, through their hard work, and have worked with their town extensively. And that's what, at least in New Jersey, you have to do. You have to be at town level and then work up. Because once you get the towns going for you, then you can go to the freeholder, and then you can go to the state senator or assembly people. I also, in Jackson, where I live, we had lost rent control, rent stabilization for 2 years. Our rents skyrocketed because there was no control whatsoever. And that's actually somewhat to our advantage in that woke our local town council people up, that they needed to reestablish rent control in Jackson, which they did. And not only did they do that, but they also put tenants on the rent control board. Interesting fact, we have 2 tenants on the rent control board. At the same time, they asked park management to place 2 park management or owners on the rent control board. To this day, they have not done that, and that's over 2 years now. They refused to join the rent control board. They have been sued 3 times, every time we won the suit. In your packet today, there's if you look at Lori's biography, it talks about that we are trying in the state to get what we call the good for the goose, good for the gander bill through. Well, I'm happy to say that was passed. Governor Christie signed it, and what it means is, before this bill was passed, if we took management to court, we could not recover our lawyer's fees. Now we can. We're treated just like the park. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary and Clark. And last but not least, Florida.
My name is Ed Green, and before I forget it, I'd like to introduce my delegation that's traveling with me today. Nick Fleischer, he's the HOA president for the community that I live in. I'm also here today to represent the state organization of Florida, the FMO, and very similar to California, it has been around for quite a long time. And I think 1962 or somewhere in that neighborhood also. So we have some very, very strong regulation laws protecting homeowners in Florida. We have a wide variety of manufactured community owners. All of them, some of them you've heard, ELS and Sun and others. And we all share the similar problems. The FMO has lobbyists, like most of you in the Capitol, working for the members. The FMO is similar to other things that you've mentioned. We're struggling with membership, to maintain membership through attrition. Florida has always been a destination for retirement, and you know, people die off, people get sick and go back to wherever their home was naturally from. And we're finding that the millennials that are retiring, you know, they're selling these big fancy, humongous houses for big prices, and then wherever they come to, you know, to buy a manufactured home, very, very reasonable. And they're just not interested, they don't see the need right now. There will be a day, there will always come a day that they will see the need. But Florida has always been very proactive because I guess, you know, next to California was one of the prime destinations for retirement people to go to. So we have some very, very strong laws, and our federation has this last year they have a 30-day mandatory resolution deadline from the state. You file a complaint with the state against your property community owner, has to be resolved within 30 days. That's one of the latest laws that just was passed this last year. So I know we're running behind schedule, so I'm going to just cut it off there. Thank you very much.
Okay, yeah, we don't want to get too far behind, but we'll take a break now. It's about a 5-minute break. There's snacks and refreshments still, and there's handouts from our next speaker, George Kalin, from the attorney law firm in San Diego. So you can go ahead and pick those up. He's got a stack there.
I can put those back.
Oh, okay, all right. And so we'll reconvene in 5 minutes or so, okay? So don't go too far away. Thank you.